Hi, and welcome to the Spokane GOP Legislative Action Podcast, where we discuss all the latest happenings in your Republican Party here in Spokane and the great state of Washington. Today I'm excited to host Washington State Representative Jenny Graham, who's taken time out of her very busy schedule to talk about her work in the legislature. Representative Graham, thank you for coming.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Great. So first question for you. I read a little bit about your story and how you came to be in the legislature, and I think it really resonated with me, and I think it'll resonate with a lot of folks at home, particularly when it comes to public health and safety. Can you tell us a little bit about that story and how it came to be, how you came to be in the legislature?
Well, first of all, I definitely did not ever in my life think that I would be doing what I'm doing right now. I did not look for politics. Politics found me. And it happened, I think, quite naturally with my sister, Deborah Estes. She was unfortunately a victim of the Green River serial killer. She was also, unfortunately, being sex trafficked when she was murdered. So it was just, surreal. And I was young. I was 17 when Debbie was murdered. She was 15. So this really has been a part of my life for a really, really long time. And there were things that I experienced as a teenager, as a young adult, as a mother, that I've watched change, and not for the better. So honestly, that's what put me on this path. I originally worked to change the child sexual assault statutes of limitations in Washington State because due to my sister's case, I found that there were children that were being denied a fair hand in our justice system. And so I took that on as a wife and a mother, an Army veteran, and just somebody that cares very much about safe and clean neighborhoods. So I worked real hard 2 years out of my life to change that law, which was carved in stone.
Right.
They were not going to change that law, and I was not going to let them get away with not changing that law.
Yeah.
So I didn't give up. I just kept going back every year, getting stronger, and we were able to change it. So then I did end up going. It took another couple of years. I was having to fight to have a face-to-face meeting with Gary Ridgway, the man that murdered my sister. That, again, was another one of those things. Every single odd was against me.
Right.
If one little thing had gone wrong, it would have not happened. But I had about a 4-hour conversation with him that I don't regret. I believe that I'm a better person for doing it. And it definitely helped me to be on the path that I'm on, because it was after that I started to, our kids were older now, we're very settled, and it was important to me after supporting my husband's job and my kids growing up and always being involved. Now it was my turn to do the things in life that really I wanted to accomplish. And because now I have the life experience behind me to see that if I hadn't have gone through those things that I did in my life, I would not be as effective as I am as an advocate for positive, balanced change in our justice system.
What I found amazing about this story, too, is that being in this process, you got to see the perspective from the side of the victim, and I guess from what I can tell, you've seen a hole, or at least something that is lacking here in the state of Washington. Can you talk maybe just a little bit more about victim advocacy and how we're really leaving those victims behind?
Whoa, wow. Boy, and how is that an absolute reality? There recently was a crime victims advocate named Tiffany Attrill. She wrote a letter to the Seattle Times, and she said why I'm walking away from being a crime victims advocate. And that letter was talking about the fact that crime victims really don't have much in the way of rights here in Washington State, and there certainly isn't much in the way of resources to help them. And, as I was reading through that letter, it occurred to me that this is why I stepped up to run for office right here. And again, being on the committees that I'm on and seeing the things that I'm seeing, we definitely have to do better. It's even in our state constitution. The state constitution says, and it's not a suggestion, it's a mandate, that crime victims be treated with dignity and respect, and equally as aggressively as you would the accused.
Right, and that's horribly disproportionate.
That is not happening right now. So again, we definitely want to be able to help the individuals that commit a crime, that take care of the programs we have, that genuinely repent for what they've done to harm somebody else, and they hold up their end of the bargain, and they do not continue to leave victims or dead bodies in their wake. Then yes, we should help, I think, to support them to do that. It does not mean, though, that they don't pay the consequences for what they've done, because we need both. I hear so often, that it's about rehabilitation, right? So what that does is that completely leaves out the crime victim. Well, this doesn't matter. It's just about rehabilitation and not about accountability.
Yeah.
And we really need both.
Right.
You don't have to choose one over the other. And as far as the crime victim side, I actually had a bill that I was working on to create a crime victims ombudsman at the state level. And what that would do is it would be a standalone agency where there can be funding that helps to train crime victims advocates, because we're really hurting in that department as well. It also would give crime victims a place to go if they felt that they were being mistreated. Where exactly does a crime victim go?
Right.
I was just speaking with Miss Attrill, and she had mentioned that so many of the agencies that a crime victim would have gone to no longer exist. Violent Crime Victim Services, which was a place that I went to, it was a support group for families of homicide that had a family member murdered. That was a place for us to be able to go, and that doesn't exist anymore.
Wow.
So, when I hear things from somebody that is such a seasoned advocate, long-time advocate like her, and she's saying there's really only one place that I know of for a crime victim to be able to go, and it's over a year to try and get into it.
Wow.
She had a 10-year-old that watched her mother be stabbed to death right in front of her, and she was desperately fighting to get this 10-year-old in, for counseling. Right. And it's not available. And that's what I'm talking about, is that what is available to help that crime victim get back on their feet, pick up the broken pieces of their life, and try to move forward. And it's really hard when you're not even visible.
Right. And I think that just offends every notion of justice that we have down to our core. I mean, that's just appalling to me.
Right. And that's especially true when you have individuals that are perpetrators of violent crime over and over and over and over again. And they have no fear of the police. Right. They have no fear of our court system. They have no fear of accountability whatsoever. And all of the rights and resources and even classifying them as the victim.
Right.
Which has happened. I've had conversations where murderers, violent people, are actually being considered the victim. And, I've gone round and round with some other people about that, hey, they didn't really know what they were doing, and I'm just like, stop it.
Right.
There is a universal language of fear and pain. It doesn't matter whether you speak English, Japanese, the tears and the crying and the pleading, please don't hurt me. That is universal language.
Right. It's a language we all speak.
And
sure.
The predator knows. The predator knows it. And unfortunately, I wish that we lived in a perfect world where this stuff doesn't exist, that we didn't have to have, a justice system, that we didn't have to have courts or jails, but we don't live in that world. There are violent people that enjoy hurting or killing other people, and they don't worry about accountability at all. So those are the people that we need to keep managed, right? So as much as, and I'm also that person that if somebody, because we don't want to see somebody that's innocent be accused either. So trust me, as much of a crime victims advocate that I am equally as strong on the other side, that if somebody has been wrongfully accused, then I will fight for justice there, because somebody walking free that's committed a crime isn't justice.
Right.
But somebody going to jail for a crime they didn't commit isn't justice either.
Right.
We need truth in our court systems, and we just seem to be going further and further away from it. My family and I went to go see To Kill a Mockingbird last night.
Right, Atticus Finch.
Yes, and I sat there and I listened to it, and so much of it reminds me of what it is that's going on right now today. But it's easy also to get lost in that, where there is another side. And that story wasn't the best, when it came to victim-wise, because she wasn't being honest.
Right.
Right? And truthfully, being a survivor of rape myself, it angers those of us that are survivors that this happened to, when somebody makes up that, right? For whatever their reason is, they don't get held accountable like they should. So again, I have a great deal of sympathy for somebody that's gone through these crimes, but an absolute equal disdain for somebody that would be dishonest about it, because it makes it so much harder for the people that this actually happened to.
Right. Yeah, well, great. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And I know a lot of the work that you're doing in the legislature has done a lot of good things for those victims as well. Stemming from that, I wanted, not to derail our conversation a little bit, but in Olympia, right, this last legislative session was certainly a lot for some folks. Moving into this next year, are there any areas that you feel are particularly primed for success, or some success from last year that maybe you want to build off of? And conversely, are there any areas that you're primarily concerned with, especially for Republicans in this community? Obviously, there's a level of pragmatism in the state of Washington. We're a Democratic supermajority, and we've got to play within those bounds. Right.
Well, and again, I think what's very important about what you're talking about is, first of all, crime, does not ask what political party you belong to. It doesn't care. It's an equal opportunity destroyer of people, and that is on the criminal side and the victim side. So, this is super important to remember, that this is something that should be bringing us together. We should all want to live in safe and clean neighborhoods. And so that is something that I will continue working towards. We did have a little bit of success this session, 23, in regarding police pursuit. There's so much work that needs to be done on that, though. And also the Blake bill, I did vote for that, even though it was killing me inside to do that, because my law enforcement was saying, we have to have something. We have to have something. So this is a misdemeanor, but it's also, fair to recognize that in Washington State, we are the worst in the nation for people that are dying of drug overdose deaths.
Right.
And
it's pouring in record numbers.
Right. And, remembering, because in public safety that I'm in, oftentimes they talk about data. They talk about numbers. For me, being on this side of it, it's never numbers for me. Mm-hmm. It's faces. It's names. There's a person behind that statistic. It's families. It's lost lives and futures and opportunities. These are not numbers. They're people. And this is why I'm so passionate about this. This is why I fight so hard. for these crime victims not to be invisible, because unfortunately in our system, if you become a homicide victim, you have no more rights. You have none. They're gone. The person that murdered you has all of the rights, and it's just awful. It's awful to see that because somebody managed to kill you and not harm you, that you really don't have these rights. And so a lot of times it's the crime victim and their family that pay the price for that. And it's not just during what might be a trial or a sentencing, because they'll follow the criminal, but they don't follow what happens to this family. Right? You may have a parent that just never recovers.
Well, how could you be whole again after losing a child?
Right. And how does it affect, maybe this was a young parent or something that died. How does this affect their young children growing up? Right. We often talk about what happens to the children or the families of the incarcerated. Where's the conversation for the crime victim's family? Right? This is something that we really desperately need to have robust, healthy public debate more often than what we're doing. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Recently, we just had the Assembly Days in Olympia. And for those that don't really, it's basically the beginning of session. These are pre-things that we're talking about. Session begins in January. I believe it's the 8th that it starts. So this just kind of gives us this head start. And during that committee hearing, there were a couple of different things that came up. They had their data experts that they bring in. And this is another issue that I definitely have, because it happens all the time in the committees that I'm in, where an expert will be brought in, and they are not necessarily on the up and up, and we don't get a chance necessarily to talk to them about what they've said. So if we don't get to, that just remains that they've been able to say whatever they want with no questions.
Discourse,
Exactly. And that this particular Assembly Days, there was a gentleman that was saying during that committee hearing that retail theft really isn't an issue.
Okay.
It's not an issue. It's your imagination. It's the big box stores that are talking about this so that they can raise their prices.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Okay.
and that's why they're pulling stores all across the state of Washington.
Right. And so, of course, I'm sitting there, and there's only 3 of us that are Republican that are on that committee. And I thought, no, I cannot do this. And I said, look, I respectfully am going to have to disagree with you. I've been in I don't know how many stores that I've watched people walk out with
no
armfuls of
repercussions.
stuff, carts full of stuff. You see it on video where they are converging on these stores. And I said, it's not accurate. It's just not accurate to say that it's not happening. And when I spoke with Chief Meidel, he'd mentioned that he remembered seeing a report that he said we're going to be looking into to get those results, where they were saying in this new report that we're second behind California for retail theft.
You don't want to be second behind California in anything.
Right. But again, this is this data expert now.
Right.
That came in. And if you're going to be a data expert, I expect you
to know the data.
The data, okay? But you can pay anybody for anything you want for data to come up. So there is a retail theft bill that I've been a co-sponsor of, that there are some that don't want that bill to pass. So of course, they're going to have their data expert come in and say, it's really not an issue, right? And I basically, my premise was, well, I'm going to believe my lying eyes, my own eyes that have seen what I've seen.
Right.
Over your data that's telling me that I'm not seeing what I'm seeing. Another issue that came up with that is, again, really important is another individual that was giving testimony saying, because our crime rates are just off the charts. murder, violent crime, you name it, and a lot of these cases aren't being solved. So according to the data expert, I will give you a wild guess as to whose fault this is that these crimes aren't being solved.
Sure.
Law enforcement, of
course.
course. The scapegoat for everything.
Every time.
And, again, I had to, and I hate doing that. I do. I don't like doing it, but somebody has to. That's what I'm there for, to point out, well, now, wait a minute. In the district that I'm in, because I pay attention to these issues, I know for a fact that in the things that I saw change, if you are a drug dealer and you're cooperating with the police, you are then considered to be a snitch, right?
Right.
That's changed now to include that if you're the crime victim and you cooperate with the police, you're a snitch.
Yikes.
So this is where you're getting drive-by shootings and other violence that's going on. So the point that I was bringing up, which is totally fair, is it really that people don't trust the police? And I'm not saying that can't be the case with absolutely everybody. There may be somebody that's had a bad experience, and they might be. But I'm going to guarantee you that the majority of what it is you're seeing is that people do not feel that the police can protect them. That's a very salient point. The other thing is, look at what's going on with our court system. Right. They don't trust our court system. There's no truth in sentencing. Right. So now you've witnessed a violent crime or a murder and you cooperate, right? And now that person gets out of jail, and because they are letting these violent criminals out, they find you to hurt you or hurt your family. Are you going to cooperate with the police for that?
Not if you're terrified.
Right. And this is also coming on the heels of, with all of the violent crime that's going on, people also recognize that when you pick up the phone to call 911, we are the dead last in the nation for when you pick up that phone to call for help. Are they going to have somebody to send? And a lot of times it's no, and that's getting worse every day.
Right.
And this is also in conjunction with more bills coming up for them to take more and more of your rights away as a law-abiding citizen, Second Amendment rights. Okay, that is an equalizer for you to protect yourself.
Coupled with all these bills, or at least suggestions by some people to defund the police, which is going to put us at even more of a disadvantage.
Right. Exactly. And then when you find yourself you now become that victim in the justice system. So many people have we have a justice system, that will handle that. Really, be in my shoes for a little while and see the things that I see. And that's what a lot of people don't understand is once you get into that justice system as the victim, you are the only one that does not volunteer to be there. Everybody else volunteers. If you're the criminal, you knew what you were doing and you did it anyway. Mm-hmm. If you are the prosecutor, that's your job. If you're the defense attorney, if you're the judge, all of these people volunteer, but the crime victim does not. And you're the only one that does not have any legal representation at all because the prosecutor can't do it.
Right.
They represent the interest of the state. And I certainly didn't know that when I was younger. I'll guarantee you there's a lot of people I run into, they are totally unaware of that. And this is why I'm saying we need to be having these robust public debates on these issues. And it cannot always be about the criminal side, which is what we so often see. Even in the homeless situation that I go to a lot of these different meetings, as much as I can physically be there, I go if I have an opportunity to do it. And what I've seen from participating in that is you will have the people that are advocating for the homeless, and you have law enforcement there, but I don't see any victims of crime, business owners, homeowners that have had their cars or their
everybody just chalks it up and said, they got insurance, as if that doesn't
right.
punish them in some
we're
way.
Starting, and again, this is an eye-opener now with Kia and Hyundais. You've now got the insurance company saying, we're not going to insure your car. What happens if you're living in a neighborhood that has been just ravaged with crime? And they say, well, we're not going to insure
There's
you.
nothing you can do.
Right?
You're screwed.
Exactly. And this is why, I mean, we are seeing more and more going in this direction. And, you know, you don't always have insurance that will pay for it. So if you're like us, when our truck got stolen, it's an older truck. You know, we maintenance our cars, take very good care of them. The truck was stolen. We had liability insurance only. So you're out. If you don't get that truck back, and it cost us $5,000, we were lucky to get it back. But what was on my mind are the people that I work for, that I represent, that elderly couple maybe that can't go out and buy a new car, the disabled person, the young family just starting, the business owner. And we are still having supply chain issues on top of it. So if you can locate another car, a lot of times these older vehicles, pre-owned vehicles, are costing as much as a new vehicle. Why? Because the newer vehicles take, 6 or 8 months to get. They're stripped down models where the other ones had all of the bells and whistles on them. So, you know, it's a very complex issue that we are dealing with across the line. And it just so happens that a lot of this corresponds with the committees that I'm on, whether it's public safety, civil rights and judiciary, healthcare and wellness. I deal with a lot of the homeless issues, with all of those committees. So in a way, it's good because each one of those things touch. And if you're a very engaged representative like I am, because I'm the representative that will put on the jeans and tennis shoes and go on right along with the police department, the fire department. I was trying to pull shifts at the hospital when COVID hit, because we had the situation happen where now you have the counselors that are working with the police. So I would go and see, how is this interconnecting? And when you had an individual that was threatening harm to themselves, threatening to kill other people, they were involuntarily picked up, taken to the hospital, and I was still on shift when we got the call that the person walked right out of the hospital.
Wow.
Okay, this is a dangerous person now. What happens if they do...
It's a huge threat to public safety.
Right. What happens if they hurt somebody else? Is the city now going to be sued?
Right.
Right. But I also was looking at it from the standpoint that nurses and doctors are not security guards. So, you know, we have to do a better job when it comes to dangerous individuals like this in providing a place for them to be able to go. And I'm actually dealing with a case right now where there's been a woman that has been on social media threatening to kill herself, to kill other people, trying to find a gun to go to a school, shoot the school up because she's mad that she doesn't have custody of her kids. That person is very close to being let back out of jail again. And I frantically have been looking for help to try to get this woman help. You cannot just release these people back into society and give them, prescriptions for meds, 5 different, medications that they haven't seen how she's reacting to them. They can't just go to a pharmacy and go get them. The mother is absolutely in tears. She's going to hurt somebody or kill somebody, and I've sadly already seen it happen, but it was on the west side, not in my district. And the mother was trying to get help, and the son did end up killing her. Wow. Which is why I'm treating this so seriously here. But, if I'm a lawmaker and I can't pick up that phone and get help for this person.
Right. How is somebody else
how is somebody else supposed to be able to do this? And their family member, they don't have necessarily the rights to be able to do this. And this is what it is, that I'm seeing firsthand, that I absolutely respect somebody's privacy rights with their medical information and medical needs. But when they're that person that is mentally unstable, they are threatening to hurt themselves or kill other people, they're going on social media doing it, I am sorry, all bets are off at that point in time. We need to take action to get them into a facility where they're getting help. And that is not being funded right now in the way that we should. I know out there at Eastern State Hospital, there's a good portion of that that's sitting there empty.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Right.
Why? Why? How much money do we have going into this homeless industrial complex for which we're really not getting much at all in the way of what I call bang for your buck for the taxpayers? It's having a detrimental opposite effect. That word is getting out because of all the free stuff that we have here, and the fact that you really aren't being held accountable.
Right.
You know.
Well, it's fascinating to me, and I think this is a nice segue for us as well. And I want to know your thoughts, because it seems to me that there's all these different areas and all these different facets that are interrelated.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned public health
Mm-hmm.
and hospitals, the police force, law enforcement, homelessness, all these things that we need to work on almost at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
right? Otherwise, a falter in one area has a transitive effect on somewhere else.
Right.
One question I did want to have for you, because I know we got to be mindful of your time. You have a new housing bill that I was reading about the other day. Obviously, that has a huge effect on everybody, and I know a lot of people are really, really feeling that. Could you tell us a little bit about that bill, if you don't mind?
Right. It's House Bill 1872. It's been pre-filed, and this is a bill about transparency and accountability. There are so many people that I know, again, Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter. There are a lot of us that want to help people that have fallen down, and are struggling in their lives. We want to give them a hand up, and we want to help them get their lives back again. So very, very much support that. However, this has also become very much a cash cow for some individuals. We have nonprofits that are sprouting up. There's really not much in the way of auditing or accountability. So you keep hearing, we are over $1 million per homeless person right now.
Wow.
Money going towards this, trying to solve this. And Governor Inslee right now is asking for more and more and more and more money.
Right.
And we're going, what have you done with the money you already have? So that's where this bill is coming from. Who is getting the money? How much are they getting? What's their business plan? What are they going to plan on spending it on? How much money is going towards their salaries and overhead versus how much money is getting to the homeless? How many people has your nonprofit helped out of homelessness, right? So, and we don't want to see just that they've gone to a hotel for a week. We want them in stable housing with a job or resources, maybe if they're disabled. We want to
Right.
see that be the case. This bill also has some teeth to it, that it requires auditing and them to submit the things that we're asking for to the state auditor's office. And if they are out of compliance or they refuse to do it, they're not eligible for any more funding
Right.
until they get back into compliance for this. And there's also teeth because too many times I'm seeing that a nonprofit will start up, they go through the money, and you don't know it until that money's already gone. You're not going to get the money back.
Right.
Prosecutors really aren't prosecuting it. They just open up another nonprofit and do this all over again. So what this bill also does is if you are somebody that misappropriates those funds or commits fraud, you are permanently barred from being able to get any more of that money, because we want to see that money go to the people that are
Needing it, yeah.
needing the money and doing the work that needs to be done, where that money is actually going to help for counseling, going to help them, maybe get trained in a trade, helping them get counseling or, get into sobriety. We don't want to see that money being siphoned off into other areas that really are not where that money is supposed to be going. So, it's very much keeping the families that I serve in mind. These are hardworking families that are trying to put food on the table, gas in the car. They're trying to pay their bills. And what's happening is more and more money the state is continually just keeps taking out of their check, and they don't even get a say
Right.
in whether they want that or not. So instead of fixing the problem, Where is all this money going that we're already
Right,
giving
we're feeding
you?
a beast.
They just keep going back to the taxpayer to squeeze harder and harder and harder, and it's just not sustainable. We have to find that balance, right? We have to find, the people that really are providing those services, and they are out there. There are models out there that are working where you see these success stories, and that is just exciting to see. It is exciting to see somebody get their life back again and get reconnected with their families. I mean, I feel so sad for the families that have, loved ones that are suffering, from substance abuse. It's like having a family member that died, but they're still alive, right? Because they're not with us. They're like the Walking Dead
Right.
at this point. So, I just can't see that as being life. It's cruel.
Right.
It's cruel. That's not living, that's existing.
Right.
And they are being subject to horrible crimes against them. And they are living day to day for these drugs,
Right.
doing things that people would
They
not
are
normally
among
do.
the most vulnerable in our society.
They absolutely are. And they are not within their right mind to be able to make these decisions. So we need to be able to get them in a stable environment where they can get out of the cloud of the drugs so they're thinking straight, and we get them connected to programs.
And get rehabilitated and
That's
get back
right.
into society.
And
That
there's
should be the ultimate
accountability,
goal. Yeah.
right? So our drug courts were doing really good before the Blake situation. Now it's turned into just give me my misdemeanor and let me go do my drugs.
Right.
We're going to have to make that a felony again, and we are going to have to go after these, the people that are manufacturing and distributing
these drugs, yeah.
these drugs, which I had a bill that did exactly that, increased it, but we can't get those bills. Don't get hearings
Right.
with the current majority party. They won't give these bills a hearing. And, we have to do something. I can't tell you how many people I know of that I've personally talked to, that law enforcement has talked to, where they've thanked them for saying, you saved my life. If I had been doing drugs right now with things the way they are, I'd probably be dead.
Right.
And they're right. They are right. I want to see these people get their lives back. I want to see them be reconnected with their families. And the legislation that is passing, the policy that's passing right now is doing the opposite.
Right. The status quo isn't sustainable by
Right.
any measure.
It's not, and it shouldn't be tolerated either. This is just not. It's inhumane.
Well, again, thank you so much for your time. I know you have a very, very busy schedule, especially with all these different committees you serve on and the great work that you're doing. So, again, I can't thank you enough for taking time to be here with us today, and I'm really excited to see how this bill, especially the housing bill, moves forward.
Yeah, I believe that Jim Walsh Representative Walsh is the co-sponsor
Okay.
on the bill, and as the state Republican state party leader, he had mentioned that when they put this out, social media, it had 25,000 hits just like that.
Great.
So this is an issue that people care very much about. They're following it. And I'm just happy, again, for the robust public debate that we need to have and for the opportunity to be able to inform. Because we need the people that we serve to come alongside of us and to work with us by tuning into, by asking, the call to action, would be to say, please, contact your lawmakers and, your representatives and your senators and ask them to give this bill 1872 a hearing. Because it is a really important bill that moves to turn things around and get that money really get into the hands of the people that are going to be accountable and put it where it needs to go. And then what we need them to do is pay attention to that hearing. Mm-hmm. And they need to get their family and their friends, their church family involved, that we need to turn away from not talking about politics at, the kitchen table.
Right.
We need to learn how to have honest, respectful conversations, because that's what's gotten us into this, is not talking about it.
Right.
Politics, it lands, it's local. All politics are local. They all land at your doorstep. And when you sit back and you wait for Joe to do all the work, Joe's going to put the work in, and he's going to make Paul pay for it.
Right. And I think that's a sentiment that we all share here. As you know, we're the Legislative Action team, and with the Legislative Action podcast, mere awareness of this is not enough, is because, like you said, all politics are local, and it does affect you.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.